to visit family out of state. I was gonna, not to, I want to be out of state. Saturday we leave for California for a week, so that'll be great. So, my brother's in Anaheim, so we're gonna do, or he's in Carlsbad, so we're doing Disneyland in Anaheim for a couple days, and we're going down to Carlsbad. So. You can suggest in our other business, but we can't. So it's 7 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pileski.
Here.
Trustee Berkshire.
Here.
Trustee Delapenna is absent. Trustee Domke.
Here.
Trustee Lanisa. Trustee Perkowski.
Here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to the presentation of the prepared agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll now move to Village Board public comment. Anyone wishing to provide comments on a topic or an agenda item may address the Village Board during the public comment and public hearing segments of the Village Board. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments submitted in advance of the meeting?
Yes, we do. Our first comment is received from Jennifer Crowley on the topic of home-based businesses. She states, I would like the Village Board to consider an amendment to the home-based business ordinance to include pet grooming services being allowed as a home-based business. I propose this amendment be considered with the guidelines that pets will not be held on the premises beyond times required for service and not outside of the hours of Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., so as to limit any disruption to neighboring residents. The village currently allows single-chair hair salons and barbers as home-based businesses. The traffic from a home-based pet groomer would be no different than these businesses, which are already allowed. By stipulating that pets are not held on the premises beyond the time of service, this would address any concern over increased noise from potentially loud dogs. Furthermore, I have had a house call pet grooming business licensed with the village in which I entered clients' residences and performed grooming services. I would simply like the ability to perform those same services in my own residence. By performing these services in my home, I have a greater amount of control over the environment, safety measures, and cleanliness. I would be happy to work with the village to address any further concerns. The following names also submitted public comment in support of Jennifer Crowley's home-based business public comment. They are Margarita Ketov, Jennifer Zapata, Erica Silva, Kevin Traver, Tony Cannon, Christine Everhart, Greg Everhart, Jessica Ryan, Nicholas Harbashek, Ryan Tuma, Tiana Ryan, Ashley Ramondi, Ashley Ryan, Amanda Phelps, Alice Dennis, Abby Cannon, Andrea Gurek, Dina Incidencio, Lisa Fonseca Melodic, Rebecca Kenzel, Sandy Ficara, Stacy Bayhales, Janice Cooper, Kelly Plaza, Eileen Camisa, Lisa Drugan, Caleb Phelps, Caitlin Shiga, Meredith Everhart, Melissa Pereira, Derek Fadden, Barbara Hochstad, Domenica Colella, and Tammy Cameron. There was a total of 35 public comments submitted.
Thank you so much. Do we have any members of the public here today that wish to speak at this time? Please just state your name at the podium and make sure the microphone's on and near your voice so everyone at home can hear you.
My name is Jennifer Crowley. The original public comment was from me. However, I have an additional comment I would like to add. Can you hear me good?
Mhm.
Okay. As you may know, I'm here tonight because the business license application I submitted last week was denied for my pet grooming business, Posh Pet Spa, which would be a home-based business under the home occupation ordinance. Post denial, it was communicated to me that animal-related businesses are not allowed as home occupations within the village, and also that there was a concern over increased residential traffic. Under section 411, home occupations, paragraph C defines a level 1 home occupation as those having no negative impacts on surrounding properties and shall be permitted uses within the applicable zoning district. Under paragraph D, level 1 home occupations may include any of the following uses and any uses similar thereto. This includes barbershops and beauty parlors limited to 1 chair. Barbershops and beauty parlors are not defined in our village code. However, I don't think it would be a stretch to define these as services, an establishment where clipping, shampooing, and related services are rendered. The village code defines pet grooming as an establishment where clipping, bathing, and related services, except those of a veterinary nature, are rendered. It specifically, in the definition of pet grooming, stipulates that no boarding is allowed. The prohibited businesses under the home occupation ordinances specifically list animal hospitals and kennels. It does not list pet grooming because pet grooming is a fundamentally different business. Could it be a nuisance? Absolutely. If any of you have pets and you've walked into a typical grooming salon, it's loud. There's barking dogs. Your dogs are typically there for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. What I have proposed is a completely different business model. Had anyone reached out to discuss this with me, we wouldn't even be here. I am proposing 1 pet at a time, the same way you would expect service when you go into a human hair salon, not sitting waiting for hours at a time while someone else is getting their services completed. I am proposing that we allow these businesses with the stipulations that I expressed so as to limit any possible nuisance to neighboring residences. There would be no increased traffic beyond what the businesses that are allowed under the ordinance, such as daycares with up to 8 children. That causes a heck of a lot more traffic than me taking 4 clients a day, 1 at a time. A lot more traffic, a lot more noise. I would love it if the board would reconsider my business license application. However, I understand that may not be possible tonight. However, I urge you to please consider amending this home occupation ordinance, as this does not only affect me. Given the changes that have happened to all of us over the last 2 years, from government or business shutdowns to rising costs, to a lack of childcare, to struggles with remote learning, the landscape is changing and we have to change with it. We need to allow the Community Development Department to use the leeway afforded to them in the code as it's written to manage these applications on a case-by-case basis, so as to afford those of us who are parents and also need to work the opportunity to do so in a way that does not disrupt our neighbors and benefits our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we shared prior, there is an appeal process that you can go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they can take up and consider that, and their decision will be final and binding. And I think historically in the village, home-based businesses have always been a hot topic for us. And so I think staff has always taken a conservative approach just based on prior issues that we've had in the community. But thank you so much for coming out tonight and sharing your comments. Is there any other members of the public here today that wish to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to officials and staff reports. For mayor, just would like to thank the village administrator for joining me in Springfield last week. We proceeded with the DMMC as well as the IML and other regional cogs for municipal government to lobby on the behalf of our interests in Springfield. So I won't pretend that we necessarily made a whole lot of progress, but I think we made our presence known, and we had a lot of valuable meetings with different government officials to make sure that we were advocating for our citizens overall and to try to make some common sense policies that are fiscally responsible. So with that being the case, any village trustees that report tonight? Yes.
I just wanted to give everyone their monthly reminder that Flags for Roselle subscriptions are open, and you have until May 1st to submit your donation to be able to get your flag on the 5 flag holidays. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Any other reports? All right, village clerk,
No report.
village attorney,
No report.
village administrator.
No report.
All right, Tom, treasurer's report.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so good evening. In your packet tonight is the February 2022 financial review as we start to fly through the year, another year, and close in on the end of the first quarter of 2022. The first page of the report displays the revenues received in the general fund in February and for the year in total. The village received some Cook County property tax in February as the first installments were mailed out at the beginning of the month and they were due by March 1st. General fund revenues are 12% of the budget so far. And a reminder that the village's revenues are cyclical in nature, can vary throughout the year. Revenues totaled $1,311,000 for the month and just under $2.4 million for the year so far. Page 2 is an attempt to compare actual revenue receipts against the budget. Based on historical trends. Building permits and ambulance billing are below expected, as you can see on that chart there, because of the large increase in the budget for the year for those. So ambulance billing, we increased the fees, the board increased the fees January 1st. And building permits, we have another payment coming in from Metro 19 and also the Timberleaf development. Ambulance billing lags, so we won't see that until a little bit later in the year. And then the building permits, of course, we'll get those a little bit later. And then all of the other major revenues are higher than expected so far. Pages 3 to 4, we display the top 10 in eating establishment tax and the video gaming establishments. Top 10 have usually been the same for eating establishment. If you think back to the last several, they flip-flop a little bit, but those have been pretty consistent. Page 4, you can see general fund expenditures, 13.3% of budget, and total just over 2.6 million. And then I've included some charts showing overtime costs by department and detailed overtime charts for the police department. Pages 7 to 8 of my report, water consumption billed in February was 10% higher compared to last year. Part of that's based on the 2% increase in the water rates as of January 1st. And then there was a couple days, extra days in the billing period compared to the prior year. Jumping ahead to page 17 of my report, the sales tax figures received in February was 32.4% higher than the prior year. And for 2021, it was up 28% through that collection period. So your question will be, when do we start seeing the comparison? It'll be next month, in April, which I can give the board, but so you'll see that in May, the May report, the comparison after we've gone through a whole year of the new formula for the sales tax. Page 18, income tax is up 41% for the year. And we'll see what the state does in terms of LGDF, our share. There are rumblings, of course, and you may have heard, Mr. Mayor, when you were down there, talk is about increasing our percentage and our share of the income.
8%, was it? 8? You're talking about?
So it was 10, then it went down to 6, and they were talking 8 is what I think we're
Moving target.
Yeah, it's all over the.
I'll take anything greater than 6.
It'll be 6.25 probably. Local use tax on page 19 is down 12.5% for the year. Again, same with sales tax. We'll see that comparison a little bit better in the next couple of months. Video gaming and eating tax both been up. And then finally, after the eating tax is the remaining income statements for the rest of the funds of the village. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate it. Move on to unfinished business. First, we have the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial in nature. These will be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items. Tonight, we have presentation and approval of the village board minutes of March 14th, 2022, passed an ordinance amending ordinance number 80-949, establishing a pay plan for village officers and employees. Adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of intent interim agreement with American Home Real Estate for the due diligence evaluation and development concept of 1828 South Roselle Road, 6.5 acre village owned site, and pass an ordinance adopting the 2022 Village of Roselle official zoning map. Do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
And Trustee Jankowski.
Aye.
That motion carries. We have nothing tonight under community development, nothing under administration, fire, or police. Public Works, Trustee Domke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for the 2022 sidewalk replacement and utility dig up program between the Village of Roselle and Strata Construction Company in the amount of $111,800.00.
Second.
Thank you. Is any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries.
I also have another motion to make. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for construction observation services for the Cherry Street Force Main replacement between the Village of Roselle and HR Green Incorporated in the amount of $90,860.00.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Say aye.
Yes.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries.
And in conclusion, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an extension to the contract between the Village of Roselle and Unamaz Landscaping for the 2022 Landscaping Management Program.
Second.
Any discussion? I will say, well, we did not bid this. They had a very low increase this year. So with all the bids out this year, we figured this would be a good move for us to take.
They also have been satisfactory or more than satisfactory for the staff.
Absolutely. That being said, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Yes.
Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you, trustee. We'll move to finance. Trustee Lanisa.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable list for March 28th, 2022 in the amount of $1,326,360.70.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll move on to new business. We do have a second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to make a public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our first presentation. Matt, do you want to come up to discuss the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau and DuPage Sports Commission membership?
Good evening. So tonight I will be presenting recommendation to join the DuPage County Visitors and Convention Bureau, hereon referred to as DCVB. In 2021, staff was approached by new management at the village's Holiday Inn Express Hotel to evaluate the DuPage Convention Center, DCVB. Currently, the village is a member of Meet Chicago Northwest, which provides the village with advertising and tourism leads throughout the western suburb region. This membership does not provide the local Holiday Inn Express with the local sporting event leads for overnight stays that DCVB would offer. Having a dual membership would provide the Holiday Inn Express with those leads, along with providing broader exposure throughout the DuPage County and western suburb region through social media and traditional media and targeted marketing campaigns. In light of the pandemic and in response to regional economic impact. DCVB is offering Roselle a discounted 3-year membership opportunity. This opportunity would provide the village with a 50% discount for the first year, a 25% discount the second year, and then a full price membership on the third year. Along with the benefits and services listed in the memo, a membership at this time with DCVB would help the village advertise centennial events that are going to be occurring throughout this year. And the increased visibility on social media would help ensure people throughout both DuPage County region and western suburbs would be well aware of the businesses and local events throughout the year. In addition to advertising, DCVB can also help the village analyze how these centennial events and other events impact the local economy through providing reports on consumer spending, distance traveled, and lodging. I recommend that the village approve a membership with DCVB at a discounted rate of $5,000 for the first year. And if the board concurs, I'll present a membership agreement and resolution for adoption on the April 11th board meeting.
Thank you so much. I'll just add, staff and I had an opportunity to meet with them back in December just to understand and get acquainted with what they have going on. I think, I approach these things with some healthy skepticism, but I think they understand that we need to see results delivered. And I think having 3 years here as outlined gives us a chance to really see the value there. What I see is different from the past is this new emphasis on kind of sporting events. I think can provide us some more realized benefits because we don't have the downtowns that other communities would have in DuPage County. And if you get deeper in there, there is going to be the 2026 President's Cup coming back to Medina. So this could be an opportunity for us to get more established in this organization to make sure we can realize some more benefits when that comes around. So, but any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Trejo?
Just for clarity, I didn't see it here, but we've never been a member of this, right?
Correct. We've talked about it in the past, but we never actually had a full membership.
Yeah, so I'm on board with you. I mean, I think it's good to try it out and see what kind of return it gives us and evaluate it in 3 years and see what it does.
Did you still have a comment?
Yes, I want to make sure, so we have to get all 3 years or could we just go year by year?
It can be year by year, but the discounted is offered in a 3-year.
I think it's something we should go forward with. I'd like to understand what our return is going to be on this. So then we would need to have some sort of metrics in place to evaluate, watch and see, but I would be in favor for it then.
Prior to then, what I'll recommend is they gave us some sample dashboards. None of this information will be Roselle specific at this point in time because we're not a part of it, but we did get some sample information that they can give us. Again, some skepticism there, but it gives us a lens that we can kind of use and apply so we can send it to the board prior to making an official vote. Wayne?
Bruce took my 2 away. Bruce took them away. Thanks a lot, Bruce.
I try.
So is consensus to move forward and have this on the agenda for April?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. And you can stay right up there to discuss the mangy dog agreement extension.
Yes, so this is for a TIF grant extension with Mangy Dogs. They approached the board for a TIF grant agreement back in October of 21, which was approved. And that agreement gave them 180 days to complete work. Currently, they are over 75% completed with work, but due to COVID impacts to supply chain issues, they do not believe they will make the final date of that 180s for completion, which would be April 25th of this year. So they've asked for a 30-day extension in order to complete work. And so I would recommend that the board approve this extension. They have been completing work, but due to COVID issues, they've been held back a little.
Any questions or comments? Is there concurrence with staff then at this point?
Why not? We got to get it.
All right, there you go. You have your direction.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to recapture agreements. Jason and Tom, I don't know who's taking this one.
I guess both.
You get the tag team.
I'll just kind of briefly introduce the topic. Tom can help answer any specific questions as well if you want to dive in deeper into any of the recaptures. Is kind of have a he has a spreadsheet that has a little more detail on some of these. So per the direction of the board, last year, a working group of 2 trustees was created to kind of dive deeper into annexations, recaptures. Really, the genesis of this was that family off Lincoln and kind of cost of sidewalk, the cost of recaptures, the cost of installing connections to our utilities. So we worked with through the working group, have a couple of recommendations that'll be forthcoming. The first one tonight is about those recaptures that we shared with the board last year as well. And the recommendation here is to basically rescind or stop collecting recapture money for these recaptures stated on Exhibit A. On that exhibit is the name of it, the year it was approved. All of them go back, I think the earliest or the most recent one, I think, is 1996. The oldest being 1972, with the majority of them in the 80s and 70s, kind of what the cost of that recapture was. So what was the investment the village put into the ground with with utilities? And then to date, how much the village has collected of that total cost. So we totaled all that up. And the recommendation here is with those Exhibit A's is to stop collecting them for really the kind of key points for the working group was they're the oldest. Most of them had very high interest rates that was reflective of really the economic times back then, or also as sort of an incentive for people to pay for their recapture sooner rather than later due to the compounding high interest rates. Overall, the village has collected about 97% of that total investment of in the ground infrastructure through these recaptures. All of them are at least 3/4 of the way, with some of them exceeding 100% of the cost due to that interest that was collected. And then just our experience as staff of kind of the levels of collection and the probability of collecting on these prospectively are very low. And for those reasons, eliminating these basically recaptures eliminates the need to track recaptures tied to thousands, if not high hundreds of parcels, particularly in the Cook County part of town. Several of these recaptures apply to the same property, so there's multiple recaptures associated with parcels. And I think the value of that asset that the village put in the ground as late as 1972 may not be the value it is today based on those recaptures. And we know at least of the one family and the impact of this on them and sort of that introduction to the community as a new resident and kind of the cost that is associated with these recaptures. And so finally, kind of the recommendation also is to refund that property owner on Lincoln Avenue what their recapture was by sort of retroactively ceasing the collection of these recaptures, and that would result in a refund to that property owner, since really this issue came about through their experience of the recapture and annexation process with the village. So I think I'll stop there with Exhibit A. Bruce, Cheryl, is there anything there that I didn't cover or you want to reiterate?
The only thing I would emphasize is that one of the decisions we looked at is when we started looking at the age of this. I mean, you're talking about the age of the infrastructure that was put in there. It made sense day one. Now, some 30 years later, to try and look at that again and then say, well, what really portion of that and how much do I have to give back because it's, needs to repair or et cetera. So that was one of the key things that we started looking at as well.
Any questions or comments from the remaining board members? Their general consensus and support on that?
I think that makes sense.
Not many dollars are lost. And the
Yeah,
time has gone on.
And I think the main thing is this has no impact to the village's budget. This won't result in a deficit in a particular fund. We really don't capture these in our budget. So this is kind of just all on paper, if you will. So I think that's an important point there.
And everyone's good with the refunding of our prior resident who had applied and we did collect this recapture money, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
So if you're okay, we can maybe initiate that refund while we work through with Attorney Knippen how we go about doing all this legislatively, ordinances, and kind of working through the mechanics of what official action the board needs to take to.
And I assume we can do that through approval of the bills list in April for that measure. Is that fair to say?
For the refund to them, yeah, I think we will write up a warrant. So there's a paper trail relative to reflecting the board direction here tonight for that, so that they can get that refund process.
Perfect. All right, if that's it, then, oh,
Just a quick
Wayne.
question. How does this not come about in 20 years from now for a board from 20 years from now? How are we not going to have this kind of,
GIS and documents.
Well, yeah, I guess depending on what you're speaking to, if it's so, part of the challenges here was keeping track of all this because of old paper records, turnover in staff. So technology, I think, helps address that. Tom has entered in most of these now, or will soon to be GIS in Munis. So if someone pulls a permit, wants to annex, we have an address and we'll say the recapture ordinance and the dollar amount owed. So I think that's the big takeaway from this. But then you'll have another recommendation coming forth from the committee about additional recaptures and whether or not to kind of handle those in a way to reduce the cost. But ultimately, you'll still have some recaptures on the books that I don't think the committee will be recommending anything be done with because they're still so new. And we will just need to ensure that the people.
don't they have a cadence where they have to pay it back? Isn't it like yearly they have to make a payment or anything?
No, not unless there's an agreement or a payment plan. So if they're annexed and, or they've got services, then they have a payment plan. But if they're not connected, they don't owe anything.
And I think that's the key thing here is, to me, this provides, we've always had an issue about how do we incentivize or make it easier to annex into the village, and some of these aging and recaptures do present a financial obstacle for a lot of people who might otherwise consider it. But if we're charging them excess of thousands of dollars, it might make more sense to drill a new well or to take a new septic should the county give authorization to do such a thing. All right, so I think we're good with the recaptures to waive. We'll move to Exhibit B, recaptures to waive interest.
Yeah, and that's really just for more information. We're meeting again tomorrow, the working group, where staff wanted to just reconfirm a couple things with the working group before advancing those recommendations for the next board meeting. I just wanted to provide it so there was some context in which to compare Exhibit A and compare it to kind of Exhibit B. But what that working group will likely recommend at a minimum is to waive the interest because of such high interest rates that were applied to those recaptures. So it would reduce, I guess, prospectively what people would owe, significantly. So it would really focus on the principal and then kind of showing what the value of uncollected principal is relative to the original cost. But that's kind of the next thing specific to recaptures that 2 weeks from now, we hope to have that in front of the board. But I just wanted to give a little visibility to what that may look like.
And any feedback or any thoughts on that from the group? Or
Well,
Bruce or
Again,
Cheryl?
I'll just go with what Cheryl and I were thinking about with this. The intent for the interest rates was to incentivize somebody to come in and pay this before they have to pay all these interests. And no one's even paying attention to it. So why bother continually just adding more dollars to something that no one's going to pay? And then if someone does want, then we're going to penalize them for something that maybe they didn't even realize they were supposed to be doing. So that's why we were looking at the interest rate as its intent is not really coming forward.
I think that's a great point. I don't think this was a bad policy decision or a malicious policy decision. I think it was meant to be an incentive. It obviously did not work. So we're going to try to make something that makes sense for today. So I appreciate all the work that you and Cheryl both put on this. I know this is a lot of work. There's more to come, but I think this is a great start for us all to start to untangle some of this mess that comes with annexations. All right. the only other thing I would ask is I think, at least for the waive and maybe once we get to the interest ones, we probably want to send a letter to those residents that are not currently annexed in the village, just to make them aware of the policy change, so they can understand the cash value that is being provided to them, should they take advantage of that opportunity and see if that spurs anything, unless that's a conversation that's already been had.
That conversation has been had and actually, we actually were talking about that as a way.
Bruce Bucks.
So
And
Cheryl-
Cheryl Sense.
So Cheryl and I were doing the same thing. We've got to promote this. We've got to go in and explain it. And then hopefully by the removal of some of these things, including the interest, maybe that may be an impetus to move them forward.
Does staff have enough direction? All right.
We're not done yet.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I know this has been a lot of work, and I can't thank both of you enough, trustees, as well as Jason and Tom. I know this has just taken a lot of effort. So any other business tonight?
Yes.
Trustee Berkshire.
So, Mr. Mayor, as I am looking at the village calendar and the public comment that was made earlier, seeing that the ZBA is not meeting until April 20th, and then I would like to have for discussion the potential of amending the ordinance and try to get that onto our April 11th meeting. As Ms. Crowley announced there, it makes sense. It could be simply a fact that we just never really define grooming compared to the other things. And I mean, I could go in and say that a barber is an animal grooming too. It just happens to walk on 2 legs instead of 4. So I would like to at least open that for discussion as a potential to bring that amendment or text adjustment back at the 11th meeting.
Thank you so much. Is there desire from other trustees?
I agree with Bruce on that one.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, I would like to as well.
All right, I got 4 trustees. So what we'll do is after the meeting, I'll reach out to trustees just to get a general idea of what the desire is around that language, since this was not on the agenda for discussion, to give staff some direction. And I think we'll probably maybe have a couple options that are fairly rudimentary and easy for us to have on the agenda on the 11th.
I guess I would defer. So I better understanding of what your direction is on what you want staff to prepare for that meeting, but maybe you can fill me in or fill us in.
I will discuss with trustees in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, and we'll give staff some further guidance of what drafts to provide.
And based on the direction of the board, we can work with Attorney Knippen to let you know, if there's what process may have to be initiated to consider those changes if the Planning and Zoning Commission has a role in that.
Aren't we rewriting? Require a public hearing. Aren't we rewriting that manual?
I don't know if this specific segment is in it, is it?
If Karen, if you can just answer that real quick.
Yeah, so amending the zoning ordinance would not be able to take place at the April Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The Zoning Board of Appeals would just consider the appeal that she would need to file with the village for it to be placed on the agenda. And then I did look at the use table for the new zoning ordinance update, and pet related services are not a permitted home occupation.
Did they modify that language in the ordinance at all, or the zoning?
Yeah.
Okay, could we maybe share that to the board sometime this week so everyone can see what was proposed by the consultants, at least for that section, as we discuss other options?
Yep.
Thank you. Any other business from the board? All right, then can I get a motion to convene executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Purpose of the executive session is to discuss this executive session meeting minutes, as well as the potential hire back of the part-time police department.
Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
And can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting since there will be no final action taken?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The meeting's adjourned at 7:30.